Billionaire Taylor Swift might actually be on the hook to pay Travis Kelce millions? Oh, we got to break down this prenup. Welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signore, and we're back with Dean Kantaras of Kantaras Law to talk Taylor Swift's prenup. So excited to have you back, Dean. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. This is a topic I've been looking to get you on. Thanks for making time, because I know a lot of people have had a lot of questions. A lot of theories have come out as to how this sort of thing might happen. And I got a lot of interesting questions, because obviously she's worth a lot of money. She's got a lot of IP, a lot of things to protect, but so does he. And so I wanted to sort of go through some questions and thoughts onto how this all might go down. I guess as a divorce lawyer, I want to ask this first. How romantic is it to have the prenup conversation before a wedding in the first place?
I mean, I guess the earlier they do it, the less, effect on the romance maybe. But if you did it, 6 months ahead of time, it's a lot easier for everyone to process and understand it. People in this circumstance where he's got 90 million and she has 2 billion, both of them probably can appreciate why the other might want the prenup in place. I think that the question is how early you bring it up. If you bring it up closer to the actual wedding date, that's when it starts to feel like maybe you're not being so romantic.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Travis has to know. Of course, she needs a prenup. Like, you would think at this point, even he would know. But who typically brings up a prenup first? In your experience, I assume it's the richer person, or is it a warning flag if the poorer person's the one who's bringing it up and asking that we don't? What are sort of the warning signs or earliest signs that you've seen in your experience?
So there's two ways. There's multiple ways you can look at that. Typically, the first one is the one that makes more money or has more, the wealthier one, as you said. That's the easy one, right? They want to protect the assets they accumulated prior to the marriage, and they certainly don't want to provide someone with a lotto ticket all of a sudden because they married them, right? And it removes the doubt in your mind that maybe they married the person for financial purposes. So I can understand someone worth $2 billion may want to, that's one of those, it's a certainty, right? He has $90 million. I think that's relatively this. I mean, to me, 90 million, 2 billion, you still want to protect your assets. So if he has 90 million and he's marrying someone who doesn't have that much, he should put a prenup. It doesn't impact him as much, but future earnings are an issue with regard to him, which is something we should consider. Another circumstance, maybe someone has been working and establishing a really big opportunity. It just hasn't come in yet. Well, you want to protect that, right? You did all the effort to set it up before the wedding, and now you don't really want them to accrue the benefit of all this work that you used to set up. Or, for instance, you're going to inherit a significant amount of money and from your parents. Well, you'll do a prenup to protect those assets as well. So there's multiple reasons. It might not even be wealth. It may be a particular emotional asset that you have that may not have significant value, but it's something you definitely want. You receive furniture, antique furniture from your grandparents, or the whatever it is, the china, for instance, right? You would put those in to protect those things so you never have to worry about losing them. They may not have a lot of financial value, but there's emotional value. So there's multiple reasons that you would want to do a prenup.
I mean, what's interesting, because of her music catalog, I can understand protecting that and that not even being part of this. Like, I can't imagine Travis himself wanting to try to get stake in things she built before the marriage. But I would assume typically what they build once they're married, sometimes that becomes the new normal of, okay, well, that stuff will be split, the stuff that we do jointly, which then begs the question of Taylor Swift has written about a lot of her relationships and never actually been on the hook to have to pay the lover about the song. And so I imagine there's going to be NDAs and things signed. Can she now not write songs about Travis? Or do you think they'll get that nitty gritty in this prenup of well, any music now about you after this becomes half and half? Like, how specific and how important is it that they get that specific in sort of these deal points, do you think?
Well, they have to, really, right? What if he helps her write some of the songs or helps her adjust lyrics to a song, and he's already waived his interest in her book or prior book for certain? Her subsequent to the date of marriage, her work could be waived. But what if he gets involved in helping her? There's got to be a waiver of any efforts he makes on behalf of helping her write the music or helping her do anything with regard to financial.
Which, not to interrupt, but just not to interrupt, but it's important because Joe Alwyn, her ex, did write some of her songs in her last album, and he got credit. So I imagine that proves that she's clearly on top of that, right, and making sure people get their credit when it's due. But yeah, he wants to protect himself in case he's now as her partner. That's sort of more assumed, no, that he's now part of the writing and the artistry.
And if her prior partner got credit, then to her credit, she did the right thing, and I think she would probably handle it in a similar way. But it would be clear cut in her antenuptial agreement what benefit or how to value that contribution.
It's kind of smart because, right, she's like, look, if you write a song, you'll get credit. If you don't, it's mine. It's probably a clear way for her to say it. And if he doesn't ask for the credit and he's not written as the credit, she gets to delineate sort of what's mine and what's yours, which honestly, she's a pretty smart businesswoman. You can't deny that. But no. I imagine these conversations have to happen. And these can get pretty tense, no matter how much love there is. And no matter how much Travis wants to be like, obviously, this is all yours, I don't want any of it. I imagine there are triggers and points in those conversations that can make this get stressful, no?
I imagine there is. Now, you had mentioned earlier, and you were correct. So her prior work is protected to some extent, right? The problem is it starts to get a little gray and murky when she's making subsequent efforts, and those efforts are contributing to her prior work to enhance values. Then you start to run into problems of active earnings versus passive earnings. Passive earnings that her prior book is generating passive earnings because she's no longer writing those songs. But what about going to concerts and singing the songs from before during the marriage, right? So we start to create all kinds of issues that need to be addressed by this pretty substantial prenup.
Right, which I imagine they are all on top of. One TMZ was reporting that a big part of it is picking which state they actually even do it in because each state is different. Obviously, Florida the best, that's where you are. But TMZ is just reporting because they have multiple residencies. And other lawyers and other people are saying, well, where they decide to file it is going to be most telling depending on who it helps, because apparently they're tied to California, Rhode Island, Missouri, Kansas, Tennessee, New York. Have you had that experience where you rep a client in Florida, but they have multiple other states or places to comprehend? How does one go about handling with that? And what do you think they're going to do here?
Well, so prenups you can put a contract that says the law of a particular state is going to apply to the antenuptial agreement or to the contract, right? The problem is going to be is that does that state recognize the ability to be enforced under that state's laws? So if I'm in Florida and I'm applying Rhode Island law, if it's against public policy in Florida, that it won't matter that you indicated Rhode Island law is going to apply. If you're in Rhode Island, there's rules in Rhode Island that deal with the contacts and whether the state you select applies. Now, I will go back now to the Rhode Island question. Rhode Island is very much a state that supports contracts, and prenuptials are contracts and the enforceability of them. The process that you would have to go through in Rhode Island, it's section 15-17-6 of the Rhode Island general laws. It provides a marital settlement agreement is not enforceable if the party against whom enforcement is sought proves, and then when it goes through, it's virtually impossible to prove all of the things that are there. I mean, it's asking you to prove not only that it was executed involuntarily, you have to prove that it was unconscionable. Unconscionable means it's drafted and it's so obviously horrible of a deal for you that you're hurting yourself to sign it, right? So the standard to get there is I could understand why they would select Rhode Island, but now they have to have connections with Rhode Island for it to be enforceable under Rhode Island law. So maybe a house. Maybe
she has an estate in Rhode Island, it turns out. So yeah, I guess that would hold up.
Then that would cover it then.
So let's assume we don't know obviously what this is. We don't know what's going to happen, but let's play the worst case scenario because a lot of these outlets and headlines are like even our title. Could she pay millions to Travis? My assumption is that she's a smart businesswoman. She's not signing up for anything, including a marriage, without her team and her finances sorted out. And I assume Travis is going to agree, or they're going to have that stuff worked out. But let's say it goes south. Do you think Travis could turn it? How likely is it? Do you think that someone as well in business as Taylor wouldn't be prepared for the nightmare scenario? And do you think there could be a nightmare scenario if this isn't done well? I guess, what are your thoughts and sort of how likely is it that she's on the hook to pay Travis suddenly if things go really poorly with something that she wasn't prepared for in the beginning?
Well, I find it, number one, as you've indicated already, I find it hard to believe that this person who's done such a good job of accumulating this these assets and this career that she's established is going to make the mistake of not having a very well drafted anti-nuptial agreement that has covered every single issue that she can think of, he can, or the professionals who draft it, right? So, I mean, obviously there's some exposure. There's, the marital effort, if she's working and generating another $1 billion after they get married, and then there's the opportunity or the issue comes up and maybe they're getting divorced and she went from 2 billion to 3 billion in Florida. The gain on it would be the obligation of Mr. Kelce to prove that there was a gain in her assets due to her effort, right? Once we show there's a gain, then it's on her to show how much that gain was, and then that part would be split. That would be the marital component. It gets split. If you have an antenuptial agreement that says he waives any interest due to her effort or his, that enhances her assets and vice versa for his assets, then that argument's out the window. And so her business and her assets are protected essentially by that. It's the mixing of the efforts that causes an interest, right? That might create a problem. Well, I'm sure there's going to be a provision that addresses if he's done something to help her music, he'll get this credit, or this is how we'll calculate it, and vice versa. I believe they're both gaining from this relationship, obviously, right? Because he's got his podcast. He'll probably make more money in his career after football than he's made in football, even though he's done quite well.
Yeah, it's a good point. And look, I do think they're going to do well. And if they don't, they seem adult enough and probably organized and wealthy enough to prepare for the wrongdoing. So I don't see this end up going in a South way where she's on the hook for millions. I mean, I'd be shocked. That means they did a terrible job going in. But yeah, I assume that this is going to be just what it is, a business transaction. Is that sort of final thoughts in a big deal like this with two celebrities? I imagine that's kind of how you have to look at it, of like, look, let the lawyers sort it out. The managers, the lawyers, they're going to do all this. I'm deferring to them. I don't want to fight with you about it, but obviously I have a lot to protect and people to protect. And I'd imagine both of them have that feeling. You would think this would be an amicable, easy sort of prenuptial, obvious necessity, right?
No, I do. I think that the professionals will draft it. I think at this juncture, two parties that have done quite well in their lifetime probably aren't gonna fight over the terms where they want to get an opportunity to get something of the other person's pie, right? They're gonna say, you keep yours, I'll keep mine. Let's enjoy our relationship. The moment that there's probably a problem is when you realize one of them may be angling, right, and saying, no, I don't think it's right. I should have an interest. Why are you making me give up that interest? Then you have to step back and look and say, hey, what's motivating this person to do this, right? Why are you trying to set it up to be able to take something? Now,
is that typically a red flag in your experience? Like that, is that something people should be working for? If someone's setting a prenup in and they're asking for those, well, I think I should get, is that usually a red flag for you?
Well, in a more normal asset scenario, when they're doing a prenup, as we started the meeting out with, is the person who has the assets typically wants to protect those assets, and so the other person who they're with may not have any assets, but they love each other, right? So this person's saying, look, it depends on what they do in their antenuptial agreement. They can say, I'm going to provide that after 10 years, this person will have this much. After 20 years, they'll get this much, and after 25 years, the antenuptial agreement's torn up. I've seen, there's different things like that they can do to make the other person feel secure. But I will tell you, when people insist on having an opportunity to have a piece of the action for things that had accumulated prior or the anticipated inheritance, that's when it becomes an issue.
So Taylor, if you're listening, that's the red flag you should be paying attention to. Maybe that's the scary part, right? Because I'm sure when you're in love, sometimes you don't notice it, even if your team's telling you otherwise. Well, he's asking for this, he's asking for this. Good advice for everybody listening. Take that as a red flag. Yeah, final thoughts, Dean.
Well, just in this case, because he's got 90 million and she's got 2 billion, I don't know that he's going to be asking to have a cutout from her parts. I bet he'll just sign whatever's there. As long as he's protected, he's going to do fine. She's obviously already knows the formula to what she's doing to get there, and he's quite well on his way to doing the same thing. I think this is an easy one for them to sit down and sign. It's not one of those where someone's going to be angst-ridden that they're going to not have anything when it's done, right?
Right.
That's not the case here.
And I imagine any joint things they create together, yeah, you just split that obviously at the end. And it seems like that's the obvious thing you're going to have to do. And they're both wealthy enough that they'll just have to pay for what it is. A lot easier when you have all the money than when you don't, is always the issue here. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. If you guys need a Florida divorce lawyer, make sure you go over to Kantaras_law on Instagram. Go follow. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you for being here. Make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that bell for all alerts. Hit that thumbs up as well. And what do you think? Do you think this will be as easy as we think, or are we missing something? Do you think Travis is out to get her money? Tell us all your thoughts in the comments down below, and stay tuned for more here on Popcorn Planet.